Picture this, the famous royal guards in their sharp red uniforms, tall black hats, and expressionless faces, standing at attention as if carved from stone. They're the very definition of unshakable and proper. But here's a secret. Just because they look like statues doesn't mean they'll let you get away with nonsense. Many tourists, thinking it's all in good fun, have tried to mess with these guards, be it stepping into their way, poking them for selfies, or pulling faces to make them crack a smile. But let's just say, for anyone daring enough to break the rules, the guards are more than ready to show exactly why that's a very bad idea. Have you ever wondered what happens if you step a bit too close? Or how the guards react if someone tries to make them laugh? These upcoming tales reveal the hilarious and sometimes stern ways the royal guards have put rowdy tourists in their place. Spoiler alert. After you hear about these memorable blunders, you might think twice about testing the patience of Britain's finest. 1. Standing in the guard's path. During a visit to the Tower of London, a man was captivated by the impressive sight of the royal guards marching in precise formation. Enthralled by the spectacle, he made an innocent yet significant mistake. He stepped directly into the path of a marching guard, unaware of the strict protocol these soldiers follow. The royal guards are trained to maintain their formation no matter what's in their way. So, when the guard spotted the boy blocking his path, he didn't stop or alter his course. Instead, the guard marched on, exactly as he was trained to do. The man was promptly knocked to the ground as the guard continued forward, never breaking stride or glancing back. Onlookers gasped in surprise as the boy hit the pavement. Thankfully, he wasn't injured, but he was certainly a bit shaken up. It was a lesson learned in an unforgettable way. The royal guards aren't just there for show. These soldiers are professionals with duties that go beyond the pageantry, and they can't be sidetracked, even by the smallest of admirers. 2. The tourist who grabbed the reins. It was a bright, sunny day in London, and the changing of the guard was in full swing. Tourists filled the streets, eager to snap photos of the iconic Queen's Guard on horseback. Among the crowd stood one particularly enthusiastic tourist who couldn't resist getting a little too close to the spectacle. Ignoring the clear warnings from both signs and guards nearby, this bold tourist reached out and actually grabbed the reins of one of the Queen's Guard horses, probably hoping for a memorable photo. Well, the moment turned out to be memorable, but certainly not in the way the tourist had hoped. The Queen's Guards are trained to protect both the monarchy and their horses. The soldier reacted immediately, his powerful voice slicing through the noise of the crowd as he commanded, "Stand back from the horse!" The intensity of his tone startled everyone within earshot, including our overly eager tourist. Embarrassed and visibly shaken, the tourist quickly released the reins and stumbled back in shock, leaving the rest of the crowd with a tale to tell. This incident serves as a reminder that the Queen's Guards may look like part of a picture-perfect British scene, but they're anything but props. They're highly trained soldiers with a serious job to do. 3. The girl who tried to make a royal guard laugh. People often assume that the royal guards at places like Buckingham Palace are just for show, famous for their unbreakable composure, blank expressions, and strict duty to never react to passers-by. This often makes them a tempting target for tourists eager to crack a smile or break the guard's serious facade. During one sunny afternoon at the palace, a young tourist decided to take up this challenge. With her friends nudging her on, she began with a few innocent antics, waving her hands, dancing a little jig, and pulling some exaggerated, funny faces. At first, the guard maintained his steely expression, as though he hadn't even noticed her efforts. Seeing no reaction, she decided to step things up. She danced around him, pulling even sillier faces, getting bolder and closer with every move. The girl's friends were laughing, the tourists around were entertained, and she was having fun trying to pull the guard out of his stony stance. But then, with a calm yet firm voice, the guard said, "Stand back, miss." The girl froze mid-giggle, immediately realizing she'd crossed a line. His tone served as a serious reminder that while they may appear stoic, the guards are still on duty, there to protect the palace, not to entertain curious tourists. The unexpected response quickly brought her antics to an end, leaving her slightly embarrassed but with a memorable story to tell. 4. Pointing a gun at a king's guard. Here's one for the what-if files. What would happen if someone pointed a firearm at a king's guard? To say it would be a huge mistake is an understatement. For starters, the king's guards are not only trained in defense but are also closely monitored by a highly alert security team. If someone were to make such a threatening move, the guard wouldn't hesitate to respond with decisive action, likely drawing their own weapon or initiating protective maneuvers. Their training would kick in instantly, ensuring the safety of everyone around. Meanwhile, security protocols would kick into overdrive. Alarms would sound, the area would immediately go into lockdown, and additional security personnel would flood the scene to contain any potential threat. Law enforcement would be notified in a flash, arriving to assess the situation and detain the individual responsible. Facing serious charges, from assault to terrorism, this person would be in serious legal trouble, potentially looking at years of imprisonment if the situation were deemed severe. Besides, the event would ripple through public and government levels, impacting everything from local tourism safety policies to larger security protocols. So, in short, don't try it. 5. The tourist who touched the guard. In today's age of social media, getting the perfect selfie has become almost a sport, especially for tourists visiting iconic spots like Buckingham Palace. For one visitor, taking an unforgettable picture with a royal guard seemed like the ultimate trophy to impress his followers back home. Spotting a guard standing resolutely at his post, the tourist couldn't resist. Without much thought, he stepped up, put an arm around the guard like they were old buddies, and raised his phone to snap the ideal shot. But what happened next was anything but the picture-perfect moment he had in mind. In an instant, the guard's steely demeanor shifted as he reacted to the unexpected touch. With a booming, commanding voice that echoed across the courtyard, the guard barked, "Do not touch the guard!" The sudden burst of authority sent the tourist reeling back, his heart racing as he nearly fumbled his phone. Startled and red-faced, he realized he'd crossed a line. The guard, unfazed and as stoic as ever, stood firm, making it perfectly clear that he was there to guard, not to be a prop in someone's photo op. The tourist, embarrassed but wiser, slinked away with a memorable story to share and maybe a little lesson on respecting boundaries. 6. Ignoring the warning signs. The royal guards, while famous for their unwavering stillness and discipline, come with clear boundaries that should not be crossed. Signs posted around their posts warn visitors to keep their distance, firmly reminding everyone that these guards are on duty, not there for entertainment. But one woman, seemingly indifferent to the rules, decided those warnings didn't apply to her, and she learned the hard way why they do. During a trip to London, the woman was fascinated by the iconic figure of a royal guard standing watch outside Buckingham Palace. Driven by curiosity, she decided she wanted a closer look. Ignoring the multiple warning signs and the barriers meant to keep tourists at a safe distance, she edged closer and closer to the guard, inching forward for what she likely thought would be a unique photo opportunity. As she approached, the guard maintained his stoic posture, but his patience was running thin. She continued closing the gap until she was within arm's reach, entirely too close for comfort. Without missing a beat, the guard acted swiftly. In one smooth, practiced motion, he stepped forward and used his rifle to firmly push her back. The force of the push caught her by surprise, knocking her off balance and leaving her stumbling backward, wide-eyed with shock. The guard returned to his post immediately, unfazed, as if the incident were just part of the day's duties. For the woman, however, the message was crystal clear. The boundaries set by the royal guards are there for a reason, and they are not to be ignored. 7. The clueless selfie taker. In the age of social media, getting the perfect selfie has become somewhat of a sport for many tourists. We've all seen it, the relentless pursuit of the perfect shot, no matter the location or circumstances. However, for one woman, this quest for the ultimate photo op at Buckingham Palace ended with a fair bit of embarrassment when she completely ignored the boundaries set by the royal guards. It was a bright and sunny afternoon, and as she stood near the gates of the palace, she spotted one of the royal guards standing stoically at attention, his red tunic and tall bearskin hat making him the perfect backdrop for a memorable selfie. Without thinking twice, she decided to get closer to capture the best possible angle. The barriers clearly marked "Do Not Cross" were ignored as she took a few steps beyond them, her focus entirely on adjusting her phone to get that flawless shot. The guard, as always, remained motionless and unflinching, his training kicking in as he maintained his composure. But as the woman lingered just a bit too long, perhaps hoping for the perfect snap, the guard had had enough. In a loud, commanding voice that echoed across the courtyard, he suddenly barked, "Step back from the guard!" The woman, completely caught off guard and startled by the sudden interruption, nearly dropped her phone in shock. The crowd around her gasped at the unexpected outburst, and her face turned an unmistakable shade of red as she scrambled to step back, mumbling apologies. With the situation diffused, the guard returned to his unflappable stance, maintaining his post without even a second glance, while the woman, now slightly humiliated, gave a quick retreat to a safer distance. The lesson? The royal guards are not your personal photo props, and if you get too close, you might just get a lesson in discipline, whether you want it or not. 8. The man who mocked the uniform. The Royal Guards' uniforms are more than just outfits. They're symbols of tradition, discipline, and British heritage, embodying centuries of monarchy and duty. However, one particular tourist seemed oblivious to this deeper significance. On his visit to Buckingham Palace, he spotted a guard in full attire, complete with the tall, bearskin hat and bright red coat. Seeing this as a chance for some humor, he decided to make the guard's uniform the punchline of his own little comedy act. Laughing loudly, he made sarcastic comments about the iconic hat, remarking that it looked like something out of a costume party, and poked fun at the guard's stiff posture. To him, it was all harmless fun. He thought his commentary was clever and amusing, but he hadn't realized he was crossing a line into disrespect. Royal guards are not there to serve as entertainment or subjects of ridicule, and the guard's reaction was swift. Without breaking his posture or turning his head, the guard barked, "Show respect!" The tone of the command was sharp and unmistakable, reverberating across the courtyard. The laughter faded from the tourist's face as the reality of his actions dawned on him. His mocking behavior was not just inappropriate, it was blatantly disrespectful, and the guard's stern reminder put him in his place. With his face flushed and his friends no longer laughing, the tourist quickly walked away, likely with a newfound understanding of what it means to respect tradition. 9. Touching the horse, a costly mistake. The Queen's Guard horses are a sight to behold, majestic, with their gleaming coats and disciplined stance that add to the grandeur of the ceremonies at places like Horse Guards Parade. But let's be clear, these horses are not just part of a show. They are highly trained animals with a serious job, and they don't take kindly to unexpected attention. One day, however, a tourist missed the memo. During a visit, he saw one of the Queen's Guard horses up close and decided it would be the perfect moment to get a personal interaction, maybe even a quick selfie while petting it. Despite the large bold signs that read, "Do not touch the horses," he stretched out his hand to give the horse a friendly pat on the nose. But the horse, trained for discipline and unfamiliar with this stranger's touch, instinctively reacted. In a quick, sharp motion, the horse snapped at him, surprising the man and leaving him yelping in pain as he jerked his hand back. What he had hoped would be a harmless moment turned into a painful lesson on respecting boundaries. The nearby guard, maintaining his formal stance, didn't miss a beat. In a calm yet firm tone, he instructed, "Do not touch the horses." The man, now nursing a sore hand and a bruised ego, slunk back into the crowd, realizing he had learned an unexpected lesson about respecting both the guards and their noble steeds. 10. The fool who taunted the guard. For some visitors, the sight of a royal guard standing stoically at his post seems like an irresistible challenge, a test to see if they can break his legendary composure. One tourist outside Buckingham Palace took this challenge a bit too seriously. Determined to get a reaction, he stepped up to a guard and began a series of taunts. He waved his hands in the guard's face, made exaggerated funny faces, and even tossed in a few immature insults, all while laughing with his friends who were eagerly filming his antics on their phones. The guard, showing remarkable patience, stood perfectly still, as if entirely unaffected by the foolish display. But after enduring several minutes of this relentless taunting, the guard decided enough was enough. With a swift, decisive step forward, he commanded, "Back away!" His voice was firm and powerful, echoing across the plaza. The sudden movement and commanding tone startled the tourist, who stumbled back in shock. His friends, who had been snickering and filming, went silent, suddenly grasping the seriousness of the situation. The guard's message was crystal clear. He was not there to be mocked or provoked, and any further attempts would not be tolerated. The tourist and his friends quickly slunk away, their video abruptly cut short, leaving them with a sharp reminder of the respect these guards command. 11. Climbing the gates. a dangerous play. Buckingham Palace, with its grand architecture and impressive gates, draws millions of visitors each year, all hoping to catch a glimpse of royal grandeur. For most, the gates are simply admired from a distance. However, one daring tourist decided to take his curiosity a step further, literally. Ignoring all the signs, common sense, and even a bit of basic safety, he decided to climb the iron gates surrounding the palace. Perhaps he was after a closer view or just the thrill of doing something daring, but he clearly didn't anticipate the serious consequences of his stunt. As he began scaling the tall spiked gates, the crowd gasped in shock, some even pulling out their phones to record the reckless act. But this was no laughing matter. The royal guards stationed at Buckingham Palace are not only ceremonial, they are trained soldiers tasked with protecting the premises. Within moments, an armed guard appeared, rifle ready, and issued a stern command, "Get down immediately!" The tourist, who had made it partway up the gate, froze. The sight of the guard's weapon, though not directly aimed at him, was more than enough to drive the message home. In a panic, he scrambled down, his pulse racing as the reality of his actions sank in. The second his feet touched the ground, security personnel swiftly escorted him away, ensuring he understood the seriousness of his actions. What he thought would be a daring moment turned into a rather humiliating lesson on respecting the boundaries of a royal residence. 12. The little girl knocked down. During the ceremonial events involving the royal guards are a must-see for many visitors to London, with all the pomp and precision making for a mesmerizing spectacle. During one such ceremony, a curious 6-year-old girl found herself especially captivated. Her eyes glued to the marching guards, she began inching closer and closer to the action, her fascination growing with each step. Her parents, equally absorbed in the grandeur of the moment, didn't notice their daughter had wandered dangerously close to the guards' pathway. Just as the guards approached in their perfectly synchronized march, the little girl found herself standing directly in their way. Unaware of her presence, one of the guards continued his stride, accidentally bumping into her and knocking her down. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd as the girl hit the ground. Though visibly startled, the guard held his position, maintaining the strict discipline required of his role. Within moments, members of the ceremonial staff rushed to the little girl's side, helping her to her feet and ensuring she was unharmed. Though a bit shaken, she quickly brushed off the experience, her initial fascination with the ceremony replaced by a story she'd be telling for years to come. 13. Disrespecting the ceremonies. Royal ceremonies in London are rich with history and tradition. Each movement carefully choreographed, each protocol strictly followed. These events are a testament to centuries of heritage, and any disruption is taken very seriously. However, one tourist seemed either blissfully unaware or blatantly dismissive of the level of respect these ceremonies require. Hoping for a closer look or perhaps just a more thrilling photograph, he decided to cross the barriers set up to keep the crowd at a respectful distance. As the ceremony unfolded, the guards in their immaculate uniforms performed their duties with flawless precision. Suddenly, the tourist ducked under the barrier and walked boldly toward the center of the procession. Whether he was motivated by the chance to snap an unforgettable photo or simply to feel part of the ceremony, it was a serious misstep. His actions broke the atmosphere of the event, drawing eyes from the crowd and distracting from the solemnity of the occasion. The royal guard nearest to him didn't hesitate for a second. With a swift, decisive step, the guard moved forward and firmly pushed the tourist back, making it abundantly clear that his presence was not welcome. The tourist, now back where he should have been all along, quickly found himself the center of unwanted attention from the crowd, many of whom murmured and shook their heads in disapproval. Meanwhile, the guard, embodying the unflappable discipline of the royal guards, returned to his position without missing a beat, as if nothing had happened. For the tourist, however, the experience served as a sharp reminder that these ceremonies are not to be taken lightly. 14. The woman who crossed the line. During a visit to the iconic Buckingham Palace, one woman found herself caught up in the excitement of being so close to the famous royal guards. Eager to capture the perfect photo, she decided to test the boundaries, literally. Ignoring the clear signs and barriers that had been set up around the guards, she seemed to think they were more like a suggestion than a strict rule. Perhaps she thought the view would be even better with a guard in the background. Or maybe she just couldn't resist the urge to get up close and personal. Without a second thought, she stepped over the barrier and made her way towards the guard. As she closed the gap, she probably imagined it would make for a memorable photo. But what she didn't realize was that the guard had a very different view on the matter. The moment she crossed the line, the guard didn't hesitate for a second. His voice was firm and commanding as he raised his rifle to push her back. "Get off the road," he ordered, his tone making it clear that she had overstepped. The force of the guard's push was enough to send the woman back to the other side of the barrier where she belonged. She quickly realized that not only had she literally crossed a line, but she had also crossed a figurative one as well. The incident was a reminder that these guards aren't just there for show, they're serious about their duty and the rules that protect it. 15. Testing the guard's patience. On a visit to Buckingham Palace, one man decided to see just how far he could push the patience of a royal guard. Maybe he was inspired by viral videos, or perhaps he thought he'd get a memorable reaction for his photo collection. Either way, he was about to find out just how much a guard would tolerate. Standing uncomfortably close, he began making faces, waving his hands in front of the soldier's stoic expression, and even attempting silly poses, all to get some sort of reaction. When his efforts met with no response, the man decided to step things up. He leaned in even closer, invading the guard's personal space in a last-ditch attempt to break his composure. The guard, having tolerated the antics for as long as protocol allowed, finally took action. With a swift, practiced motion, he raised his rifle and gave the tourist a firm shove, pushing him back with enough force to make a point. Enough was enough. The man, clearly not expecting such a strong reaction, was visibly startled as the smirk vanished from his face. He stumbled back, realizing he had crossed a line he shouldn't have. Meanwhile, the guard resumed his post unperturbed, as if nothing had happened. For the tourists watching, it was a memorable lesson in respecting boundaries, and for the man, it was a reminder that the royal guards aren't there for amusement. 16. Touching the weapons, a big no-no. While the bright red uniforms of the royal guards often grab attention, it's their weapons that tend to spark even more curiosity. The rifles slung over their shoulders aren't just for decoration, they're real functional weapons, and they play a critical role in protecting the monarchy. Yet, despite the obvious seriousness of their role, one tourist didn't seem to fully grasp the significance of the guards' weaponry. Perhaps emboldened by the guard's seemingly unblinking stance, the tourist decided to get a closer look at the rifle. Maybe he thought it would make for an interesting photo, or simply wanted to satisfy his curiosity. Whatever his reasoning, he reached out to touch the rifle, thinking it was just another harmless interaction. But what he didn't expect was the guard's instant response. The moment the tourist's hand made contact with the weapon, the guard snapped to attention. His posture shifted, his eyes locked, and with a sharp bark he commanded, "Do not touch the weapon." The force and intensity of the command left no room for misunderstanding. The tourist, who had probably anticipated a passive reaction, immediately recoiled in surprise. The guard's response was swift and stern, just a reminder that these weapons aren't to be treated as mere props for tourists to play with. The man, visibly shaken, quickly learned that the royal guard's serious stance goes beyond their uniforms. It includes protecting their weapons and the duty they represent. 17. Disrespecting the rules. The royal guards are a symbol of discipline and tradition, standing silently for hours while tourists and onlookers admire their presence. Their stoic silence, however, is not an invitation to interact. It's part of the solemn duty they perform in protecting the monarchy and maintaining decorum. One tourist, however, didn't seem to understand this and thought it would be amusing to test the boundaries by trying to strike up a conversation with a guard. The man, perhaps out of curiosity or a desire for a bit of personal attention, walked up to one of the guards and casually asked, "What's it like standing here all day?" The guard, true to his training, remained completely still, offering nothing more than the briefest flicker of his eyes. Unfazed, the tourist leaned in even closer, repeating his question as though he could somehow get a reaction by sheer persistence. He even cracked a few jokes, thinking that humor might be the key to breaking through the guard's stern exterior. But the tourist had misjudged the situation entirely. What he didn't realize was that engaging in conversation is strictly against the rules for the royal guards. Their role is not to entertain or engage with visitors, it's to maintain order, security, and the dignity of the royal family. After several failed attempts to provoke a response, the man grew bolder, likely thinking that the guard's silence meant weakness or indifference. Then, without warning, the guard took a swift, firm step forward, and in a loud, commanding voice, he issued a clear instruction: "Do not speak to the guard." The sudden shift in tone, from silent sentry to authoritative soldier, startled the tourist, who stumbled backward in surprise. His attempt to get the guard to crack had backfired in the most dramatic way. The guard's words left no doubt in the tourist's mind. He was there to do a job, and that job wasn't to chat with curious onlookers. The tourist quickly learned that these guards are all about duty, not about playing along with visitors' antics. 18. Fainting on duty, the hidden challenge. The Royal Guards are a powerful symbol of the British monarchy, embodying strength, tradition, and an unwavering commitment to duty. Yet, maintaining this level of discipline isn't as effortless as it seems, especially when standing for hours under the weight of a full ceremonial uniform. One hot summer afternoon in London, the sun blazed relentlessly over Buckingham Palace. The Royal Guards, adorned in their iconic red tunics and towering bearskin hats, stood stoically at their posts, unmoved by the sweltering heat, or so it appeared. As the sun climbed higher, however, one guard began to feel the effects of the oppressive warmth. Despite his training and best efforts, he felt a wave of dizziness wash over him. His vision started to blur, and each passing minute seemed longer than the last. Though determined to stay upright, his body had other plans. Without any warning, the guard suddenly collapsed, much to the astonishment of onlookers. Remarkably, even as he fell, his posture remained disciplined. He managed to fall in a way that maintained a sense of dignity, as if his body instinctively respected his duty even in that vulnerable moment. Tourists gasped, unsure of what to do, and palace staff quickly arrived to help. Though it was a rare sight, the incident reminded everyone of the hidden challenges these soldiers face, especially in extreme weather. The crowd couldn't help but admire the guard's unwavering dedication, even as he hit the ground. It was a moment that highlighted not only the strength of the guards, but also their resilience in the face of physical strain. 19. Taunting the guardsmen. The changing of the guard ceremony at Buckingham Palace is one of the most iconic traditions in London, drawing countless tourists who marvel at the precision, coordination, and discipline of the Royal Guards. For many, it's an opportunity to witness the calm, stoic nature of these soldiers as they march in perfect formation. However, for one group of tourists, it became a challenge, a chance to test the Guards' famous composure, a decision they would come to regret. As the Guardsmen marched in flawless formation, the group of tourists, perhaps feeling a little too confident in their ability to break the Guards' focus, started making exaggerated faces, taunting and even mimicking the guards' every move. With loud shouts and ridiculous gestures, they seemed to believe they could provoke a reaction. But what they didn't realize was that the guards had been trained to ignore such antics, and true to their discipline, the soldiers maintained their unflappable focus, continuing with their duties without a single glance in the direction of the rowdy group. The tourists, undeterred at first, increased their efforts. They shouted louder, danced around, and threw even more exaggerated poses, fully convinced they could get the soldiers to crack. But the harder they tried, the more foolish they looked. The Royal Guards continued their march, undisturbed by the performance in front of them. It became clear that not only were their attempts failing, but they were also drawing unwanted attention to themselves. The group's taunts slowly tapered off as they finally realized that the soldiers weren't going to react. Instead, they were left to stew in the embarrassment of having tried and failed to disrupt a ceremony as iconic and dignified as the changing of the guard. 20. Bite on the head. When getting too close has consequences. Getting too close to a horse, especially one trained for duty, is something that requires a bit of caution. Horses can be sensitive animals, and when they feel anxious or uncomfortable, they may act out instinctively. And for some unlucky tourists, that reaction can result in an unexpected, painful bite. One incident involved just such a case, where a curious visitor thought it harmless to inch close to a horse stationed outside a royal site, hoping to snap a memorable photo. Despite clearly posted warning signs advising caution, the tourist decided to ignore them, assuming the animal would remain calm. But as they leaned in a little too closely, the horse, feeling its space invaded, responded with a quick nip to the tourist's head, a gentle reminder that these animals are indeed to be respected. To avoid situations like this, it's essential to read and respect the warning signs posted at such sites. These signs aren't just for show. They're meant to protect visitors and animals alike. But, as is often the case, there's always one unsuspecting tourist who misses or ignores those warnings, learning the hard way that getting too close is rarely a good idea. 21. No pranks with the Royal Guard, a lesson in respect. During a visit to Buckingham Palace, a group of American tourists came across one of the Royal Guards and thought it would be amusing to tease him, with jokes, gestures, and exaggerated faces. They tried every trick in the book to get a reaction from the guard, who, as always, remained stoic and focused on his duty. But their entertainment didn't go unnoticed. After a few minutes, a nearby policeman approached the group, offering a gentle but firm reminder of the guard's role. With a friendly tone, the officer explained that while their antics might seem harmless fun, they were distracting a professional at work. The guard, after all, was performing a serious duty and was trained to ignore such attempts to break his concentration. The tourists, understanding the point, apologized and left, a bit sheepish but with a story to tell about the day they learned a lesson in British decorum. 22. Watch out for kicks. Boundaries apply to everyone. The Royal Guard's dedication to their role is matched only by the patience they must show amid constant crowds, but even they have limits. Limits that can lead to a swift reaction if crossed. In one memorable incident, even an elderly woman found herself a little too close to a guard's personal space, perhaps out of curiosity or the desire to capture a closer photo. Unfortunately, the guard didn't have much choice. As part of their protocol, they must act quickly when someone gets too close. With a precise, measured kick, the guard reminded her, and everyone watching, that the boundaries around these professionals are real, even if they're unspoken. The woman, a bit surprised but unharmed, moved back, realizing that even a simple approach might be met with a disciplined response. These moments serve as reminders that while the Royal Guards might look like a part of the spectacle, their job is to protect and to enforce boundaries, regardless of who crosses them. 23. Blocking the guard's path. The changing of the guard at Buckingham Palace is one of the most famous ceremonies in the world. The Royal Guards march in perfect formation, showcasing a mix of tradition, discipline, and unwavering duty. It's a sight that draws crowds of tourists, eager to see the majestic soldiers in action. Most onlookers understand the significance of the moment and respect the space the guards need to perform their duties. However, there's always that one person who doesn't quite grasp the seriousness of the situation. One busy afternoon, as the changing of the guard ceremony was in full swing, a tourist was caught up in the excitement and decided to take a more personal approach. As the guards marched in their usual disciplined rhythm, he took a bold step forward, completely ignoring the established protocol and stepping right into the path of the oncoming guards. The lead guard, without skipping a beat, continued his march with precision. There was no hesitation, no warning. With a swift motion, he used his shoulder to shove the tourist aside, pushing him out of the way with the strength and precision of someone who has performed the same movement hundreds of times before. The guard didn't miss a step, continuing his march as if nothing had happened, the ceremonial routine undisturbed by the brief disruption. The tourist, now standing a few feet away, was left in a heap of realization. He hadn't just crossed a line, he had blocked the path of a soldier in the middle of an important duty. And the response he received was swift and as uncaring as the professional soldier himself. While he was now safely out of the way, the reality of his mistake had set in. Blocking the guard's path, even briefly, is not only disrespectful, but also invites a no-nonsense, unceremonious response. The man quickly learned that Royal Guards are not in the business of stopping for tourists, and they certainly don't take kindly to anyone standing in their way. The Royal Guards are often seen as iconic symbols of British tradition, proudly standing at attention in their ceremonial uniforms, guarding some of the nation's most famous landmarks. But these highly trained professionals are far more than just ceremonial figures dressed in bright red tunics and tall bearskin hats. They have a very serious job to do, one that involves protecting the monarchy, ensuring security, and maintaining order at some of the most important sites in the United Kingdom, including Buckingham Palace and the Tower of London. The incidents shared here serve as a helpful reminder to anyone who might forget just how serious their role really is. Disrespecting the guards or testing their patience is not only a surefire way to end up embarrassed, but it could also result in a much stronger response than you'd expect. These soldiers don't take their duty lightly, and when their boundaries are crossed, they're quick to react. So, if you ever find yourself in the presence of these disciplined soldiers, whether at a royal ceremony or simply strolling through one of London's historic landmarks, remember to show respect. They are not there for show or as background decoration for your selfies. They're there to protect the monarchy and the public, and they take that job very seriously. After all, it's their unwavering commitment to duty that has kept them standing tall for centuries, despite the many distractions and occasional missteps from overzealous tourists. Next time you're near a royal guard, just think twice before getting too close or testing their limits. A photo op isn't worth the embarrassing aftermath when you get a stern reprimand or an unexpected shove. Respect goes a long way, and the royal guards are always watching, waiting, and doing their job, no matter what's happening around them.